Hey everybody, it's Carter here in beautiful Vancouver, Canada. Once again, we were working on the 1985 RZ 500. We're going to do the carb setup today. Funny thing, I had a dream last night that Jason Momoa was helping me sync the carburetors on this 500. And finally, my lovely wife Dawn was more than willing to help. I told her about the dream this morning. She was like, yeah, that sounds about right. So anyways, Jason isn't here, so it's just me, and we're going to go through this procedure. I, like many people, had frayed throttle cables that came with the bike. They were all frayed on the ends, and as you know, it's very dangerous to have a frayed throttle cable. You should never ever leave it alone. You should always replace them when they start to fray. So I had no choice. And you have two choices, of course, when you're going to buy aftermarket parts for, or parts, I should say, for a 40-year-old motorcycle. You can either search around and try and find NOS parts, new old stock, or you can buy used, worn, or you can buy aftermarket. And most of the time, if you buy aftermarket, things aren't exactly as they were on the genuine Yamaha parts. For instance, I had to buy throttle cables for this motorcycle, and I bought them from Yambits. And you may have seen a previous video, my carb kits that I bought from Yambits, the emulsion tubes were not the best. But having said that, I don't blame Yambits. I'm not here to bash Yambits. When I do mention these things, I mention them so that people can make a choice before they buy, or if I have a modification for the part that makes it work perfectly, then I will show that. But I applaud Yambits. Without them and other distributors like them, these motorcycles wouldn't be on the road anymore. So I am not bashing Yambits when I say this. Almost everything I bought for this bike I got from Yambits, and I was very happy with almost everything. So with that said, we're going to show you how to set up these carburetors from the beginning. And as Yamaha states, you should go carburetors, power valve cables, injector pump. And so that's what the procedure that we're going to go with, and we're going to do it step by step and do it, you know, as quickly as we can here. So Yamaha says that we start with synchronizing one bank of carbs at a time. Now this is something that you can do on the bench, or you can do on the bike. Either way works. So what Yamaha suggests is taking a wire gauge that is 0.7 millimeters thick, okay, and use that kind of like the same way that you would use a feeler gauge when you're adjusting valves on a 4-stroke, except here we're adjusting the slides. So, and we're not adjusting, of course, the cutaway here because, you know, it's much too large. We're measuring the back of the slide, between the slide and the carb body, okay, where the slide is flat. And the best way to do it is just to open the carb a little bit, put your gauge in, and then feel the drag on it. Start with the lower carb, and we put our feeler gauge in, and we use this adjuster to adjust until you just have the slightest drag on this wire gauge, and it doesn't interrupt the slide when you pull it out. Put the gauge up on the top carburetor. If it's not right, use this adjustment. Once you have it so that you have the same amount of drag on both slides, these two carburetors are synced. Now you go over to the other side of the bike and you do the same thing on that side of the bike, and now the carburetors are synced. Each side are synced together. Now we have to sync the right-hand carburetors with the left-hand carburetors. With that, we're going to use the cables. Now, as I mentioned before, I could not get these Yambits cables to, or these cables I purchased from Yambits. I don't think Yambits is making any parts. They're just sourcing them for us. Thank you. I could not get the adjustment to work on these cables if I had the two nuts separated by the cable stay, which is what you want so that you can adjust the cable and then lock the nuts down. If I had a nut on this side, I had zero adjustment anywhere. So I put the two nuts on the bottom side to give me a little more slack, and if I did it on both sides, it gave me just enough slack that I was able to adjust my pull cable to the point where I had the proper amount of free play up at the throttle, and I could now get at least, you know, a 32nd of an inch of adjustment, even more than that with the pull cable. So once you've got that, you adjust your pull cables on both sides until the mark on this lines up with the mark on the carburetor right here. It's a stamped line into the carburetor. And I'm holding my gauge right on that line right now, and as you can see, it comes right to it. So once you have that adjustment made, you go around to the other side and you make the same adjustment on that side. Once you have them both so that they are hitting the exact same mark down here, you're synchronized from side to side. So now our carburetors are synchronized on this side, they are synchronized together on the other side, and both sides are synchronized together. That means all four slides are lifting at the exact same time. Now once we have this adjustment made and we start the motorcycle, we will adjust our idle with this lower adjustment knob, and we will adjust the same amount on either side of the motorcycle. Quarter turn, even less than that. Eighth of a turn, eighth of a turn, eighth of a turn, eighth of a turn, that sort of thing, until we have the proper idle. From there, we move to our YPVS cables, which of course are right here. So we turn on our ignition and we cycle the YPVS. It sounds like my battery might need a little bit of a charge. And then we use an 8mm pin, or a bolt. In this case, it's just an 8mm bolt. And we line up the hole in this cylinder with the YPVS bracket. Of course, they don't line up, so we use this adjustment to bring that down. You can see it's starting to line up now. And then take up the slack on this second cable. Okay, so once you had a look below and you know that you've taken up all the cable slack and your adjustment is correct, you place your pin in the hole and it lines up perfectly with your YPVS valves. And then you back these off a half a turn and then tighten down the 2 lock nuts. After that adjustment, we go down to the oil pump, the injector pump. Let me just grab a flashlight real quick so that we can see. And if we look down here, we can see our injector pump. And if I take up the slack in the throttle cable, just like that, so that the carburetors are ready to open, the line in the hole and the line on the pump lever line up. It's hard to see in this video, but they do. And so all of my adjustments are correct. And if I did have to adjust that, my adjustment, of course, is right here on this cable. So there we have it. We've got 2 videos to go. The fluid fill, the initial startup, and then finally we're going to put a GoPro on it and take it for a ride. All right, we'll see you guys soon. Shiny side up.
Say sweet things to me.